Hey guys, this is your second video for the universe, and this video is called Origin of the Universe. So we've been talking about the components, what actually makes up the universe, and you guys discovered that the universe is made up of different things, and those things have different properties. They can produce light, they have motion, we find them in all different locations. Then you started looking at the types of galaxies. We kind of looked at the organization. And you guys have learned that there are three types of galaxies: elliptical, spiral, and irregular. So this week we're going to focus on some scientists, and we're going to look at the most common adopted theory about how our universe came to be. So let me introduce you to the first guy. This is Nicholas Copernicus. And Nicholas Copernicus is responsible for coming up with the idea that we are actually revolving around the sun. Up to this point, and Copernicus was around in the 1500s. And so his idea was really kind of a novel idea, and a lot of people didn't believe him because up to that point, the widest known idea was that the Earth was in the center of our solar system and everything just revolved around it. But Copernicus said, I think we revolve around something. We happen to revolve around the sun, and he called it a heliocentric model, helio meaning sun. Well, of course, people were up in arms about Copernicus, and he was actually kicked out of the church and disagreed against in public, which was a big deal at the time. So fast forward about 100 years, and you have this gentleman by the name of Galileo Galilei. He was an Italian astronomer, and Galileo Galilei actually used the first refracting telescope to kind of come up with some of his ideas. He's also responsible for showing support for the theory that Copernicus came up with, that heliocentric idea that we're revolving around the sun. Well, the church, and when I say the church, I mean the larger Roman Catholic Church, was actually a big part and interwoven into science and math. And the church wanted to make sure that everybody had the same beliefs. And so when someone came in like Galileo or Copernicus and gave a different idea, they were seen as heretics. So both of these gentlemen were kicked out of the church and publicly humiliated, people saying that you are stupid, you don't know what you're talking about, and even going as far to say that they might have been a witch or believed in something completely different. But he's in charge of coming up with the refracting telescope and also supporting that heliocentric idea that Copernicus put forward. Now this guy you've heard about before. This is Sir Isaac Newton. And Sir Isaac Newton is responsible for the universal gravitation law. And then of course all three of his laws of motion. He was a physics guy and a mathematician. And so he applied a lot of the same ideas that Copernicus and Galileo put forth and added that mathematical and physics twist to it to figure out that larger bodies had greater gravitational pull, and so that's where we ended up having our revolutions and our rotations. He also applied all three of Newton's laws: the law of inertia, force, mass, and acceleration, and action and reaction to all of the movement and motion in space. So as we progress through this whole study of astronomy, we have these three gentlemen that kind of gave us our background foundational knowledge. But the question was always, where did our universe come from? And in the 1920s, a new theory came to light. The theory of the Big Bang. And yes, I'm not talking about the television show. It happens to be my favorite, but that's not what we're talking about here. It's the most commonly accepted idea of the origin of the universe. Astronomers, once we started to have better technology, were able to see lots of things out into outer space. And they collected some evidence: light elements in stars, galaxies were moving away from us, and there's evidence that we can see that that's happening. We're actually going to talk about it next week. And then traces of the early radiation. The theory states that our universe was once a hot, dense ball of matter that all of a sudden exploded and continued to expand outward, and does so to this day. This is the gentleman responsible for that idea of the expansion and that the galaxies are moving outward. This is Edwin Hubble. So let's dive on in, and ladies and gentlemen, that's a wrap.